Hi everyone, Frank over here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pros. It opens up like this and doesn't that look gorgeous? It's like a mini iMac. Alright, conclusion first. After a while of usage, I do love and recommend this device to anybody that would consider your iPad Pro a productivity machine. But there are also things that I do wish could be improved, maybe in the next generation. Let's get into the details. I have been the biggest fan of iPad since the beginning of iPads. I remember saving up money for a really long time just to be able to get my hands on one, and I absolutely enjoyed that experience. But at the very beginning, because they did not have the dedicated iPad OS and the lack of accessory support, the iPad just feel like a bigger device that runs iOS. I made it a conscious effort to integrate it into my workflow, but because the software support wasn't quite there and the hardware support wasn't quite there, it just became a hassle. So gradually became only a book reading or media consumption machine that I feel like I was wasting so much potential that the iPad could do. Until the 2018 iPad Pro came out with the introduction of the iPad OS and the Apple Pencil that just snaps on, charges, and keep track. That just brought the whole integration up to another level. Everything started to work so much more seamlessly together. All of a sudden the word productivity machine is being brought back onto the table again. For me, for what I do, I actually migrated all of my photo editing workflow to the iPad simply because of how easy it is with my finger and with the Apple Pencil to interact with the Lightroom interface on the iPad. But still, I feel like there's something missing to be able to bring the iPad experience to another level until this magic keyboard. Like the rest of the Apple lineup, things just work. You open it up, the iPad snaps on with magnets, and voila! And there's no learning curve, and with the integration of the iPad OS, the gestures that you're so familiar with on the Mac are now transferable with the trackpad. It communicates with the iPad through the smart connector, which offers two very significant benefits. Number one, there's no pairing required. You never need to worry about the Bluetooth connection, which can get spotty from time to time. And number two, you never have to worry about the battery, since it is powered through the smart connector via the battery on your iPad. On the outside is similar materials as the keyboard folio was done before. I do like the new Apple logo cut out on the back, and it seems to me the color is slightly darker, which I do prefer. The whole mechanism for the hinge does means you add a little bit of size to the side, and it did add quite a bit of weight. But look at this adjustable field of view. For that, I am willing to take that extra weight. Trade-offs, right? Yes, now you have a backlit keyboard so you can use this device day and night. The trackpad is slightly different than the trackpad that you see in the current MacBook and MacBook Pro, where those ones use a haptic feedback to simulate a click. This one is an actual clickable, physically movable trackpad. When I first saw the product, I automatically equated this to a folio case and with a trackpad. I did not really expect any major change in how I interact with the iPad at all until I actually started using the Magic Keyboard. For me, when I had a separate device at the trackpad, I ended up not using it as much. It is a very subtle behavioral change that aggregates over time. This setup, I mean, having a separate trackpad and your own keyboard will absolutely work if you set your iPad down on your desk and use it in a setup like that. But the moment you need to pick up and go, whether it being from your home office to your living room, or if you actually want to go venture to the outside, you immediately realize it is a separate device that you need to keep track of, not only to keep it paired up to the iPad, but also you need to make sure the battery is charged. And you need to pack and account for it. You can certainly make it work, but I just prefer the convenience of having everything in one package ready to go. Now, I cannot imagine with how I use iPad to live without the Magic Keyboard. The brilliance of this trackpad or mouth support, specifically the integration with the trackpad, it means I no longer needed to lift my hands up or pick up the pencil for any interaction that I need to do on screen, whether it being switching between the apps or selecting different content. And you might be wondering, oh wow, Frank, how lazy are you that you do not want to lift your finger just that tiny little bit to interact with that screen? Trust me, it's just one of those little things that once you get used to it, that boost up efficiency where you don't need to interact with your workflow by just having a physical movement. Once you get used to the idea of not having to do that, you notice the difference. I haven't used my keyboard folio case for a while, ever since I got the Magic Keyboard, but I took it out for the comparison video, which you can click right here to watch. I noticed that it's already becoming a habit for me to reach for the trackpad for scrolling and selecting text, moving around the cursor on the screen for various actions, and that touching action, that small action of lifting my finger from the keyboard to select an app. That simple movement that previously had become a second nature, almost a habit to me, became painfully obvious. Sure, that's like a couple seconds per movement. The compounding effect over time does make a significant difference. I know it may sound a little dramatic, but give it a try. And did I mention the keyboard shortcuts? The significance of these shortcuts to me is not just to shave a couple seconds off of a task. It also shows the growing trend of the integration between macOS, the iPad OS, and the growing capacity of the iPads, which gives me a lot of hope. With this Magic Keyboard, the iPad Pro has now become a very good all-in-one setup. I can comfortably say that if I don't need to do anything heavy duty like cross-referencing data for analytics or some hardcore editing during a trip, I can comfortably just bring this one device along without my laptop. I like it so much that it's actually making me miss traveling, if that makes any sense at all. So I can bring the whole setup along and just use it more. I would love to see that one day the iPads become more powerful, that you can do all of those hardcore tasks on it, but this is certainly a step towards the right direction. Amazing. All right, I do like it a lot, but does not mean this is perfect yet. There are a few things that I would love to see changed or improved, and maybe in the next generation. Let's start with number 1. It is expensive. You've already spent a whole lot of money getting the iPad, and this is adding another 25% to the cost. But when you are choosing a keyboard case, a lot of us are choosing between the keyboard folio and the Magic Keyboard, which kind of softened the blow a little bit, but we're still looking at a big chunk of money. For me, for what I do believe for the better experience that you would get out of the iPad with the keyboard, that is, you should consider this Magic Keyboard. This does bring up a question of how you use the iPad and what do you use your iPad for, right? Do you want to use your iPad as a side gadget for your computer and you use it for media consumption or some light tasks? I do not think this is that necessary, and honestly, there are cheaper iPad options available that will handle those tasks exceptionally well. But for our video today, let's say we've determined the necessity of an iPad Pro and we're deciding which keyboard case you want to buy. I would still ask the second question, which is how you normally use it. What is your workflow like? If you want to use your iPad Pros as an all-in-one productivity machine, if you are already loving the experience and want to make it even more immersively better, I would recommend this Magic Keyboard. But if your workflow consists switching between typing and annotating, writing, or drawing quite frequently, where you still use touching and using the Apple Pencil as your primary way to interact with the iPad, it would almost make a better case to just keep with the keyboard folio, which is a lot lighter, which is plus on the portability side, and also the fact it folds flat, which makes switching between typing and annotating or drawing, which leads me to issue number 2. It does not fold flat. Unlike the keyboard folio, you need to go from typing to writing or annotating with the Apple Pencil. Now there's a whole process involved. You would either use it like this at an angle, which is not really the most stable solution, or like me, I've been taking it off the case and put it on the desk. But because I do not want to scratch the desk or the iPad, now I have to fold the Magic Keyboard and put the iPad on top of the Magic Keyboard to use it, which now becomes a process. But the more I use it, the more I feel like it might be an intentional design because of the weight that it added onto the iPad. If they were to design a case that folds all the way back, all the added weight would not make annotating or writing an enjoyable experience. You might as well just take it off the iPad and use it as a tablet itself. So when you think of it that way, it almost feels like a dock to me, right? Like an all-in-one dock. When you are in a fixed environment, you put it down for you're typing and clicking with multitasking with the trackpad. And if you want to interact with drawing and annotating, take it off of the case and use it as a tablet. And if you want to go somewhere, if you go to a different location or if you go travel, you can just pick up this whole setup ready to go, and that wouldn't be a problem as well. But this does reaffirm my previous assumption that the idea of having this Magic Keyboard is that you use it more in a sit-down environment on a desk with less moving involved. Have it as a sit-down device on a desk as a typing plus input solution. And next, the weight. I understand that in order for the floating mechanism to work, you do have to balance out the device to add quite a little bit of weight to the bottom, because unlike traditional laptops, most of the weight is at the bottom, and it's no problem at all if you open the screen and not having to worry about it tipping over. But with the iPad, the bulk of the weight is actually the brain of the device is in the iPad. So if you don't balance it out with the added weight at the bottom, it is very easy to flip over and not having a stable setup on your desk or wherever you're using it. But that also comes with the problem being the Magic Keyboard adds about the same amount of weight at the bottom to the iPad. So it works fine when you're on a desk, but if you are anywhere at tilting it at an angle, for example, if you're chilling on the couch or using it on the bed, it's very easy to tip it over. All right, almost done. I have two little things, maybe just be nitpicking, but it still kind of bothers me. Number one is to open this case, you can't really do it one-handedly. It's because of the weight, because of how it's put together, you kind of have to do it with a two-hand operation. Unlike on the Keyboard Folio or any other MacBook, I can just very easily lift the whole screen up with one finger. And when you're just opening the cover up, it does not automatically wake the screen. You kind of have to have it fully open, have the screen tilted out. But what if I just want to open it up to take a quick look at the notification? And that's it. If you're wondering which one of the keyboard cases to buy from Apple, I have a more in-depth video comparing the two, breaking down different usage scenarios, like which is better for which case. I do think these two keyboard cases, the Magic Keyboard and the Keyboard Folio, are tailored for two different usage patterns for different groups of people. So if you're more curious of how I differentiate them, feel free to hop over for that video where I break them down in more detail. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you find this useful, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.